no. So we're live. We have a special guest today. We have Danny Alvarez. Well, not Facebook Live.
Okay.
We had the same conversation every time we start.
We also it's Facebook Live.
Yeah.
So you're live.
Special guest. He's a public figure. Sheriff. He's a whole bunch of things, actually. An attorney, friend, everything else. Danny Alvarez.
And I've always said he's the future of Tampa because this guy's been involved in every community project and devoting and committing his time, his energy to promoting whatever it be. Now it's for the sheriffs, but for others it's been Latinos, and he's a great all-around guy, good guy, and a veteran, correct?
Yeah.
So he served his country proudly, and so I'd like to start off, if I could, how did we first meet? Because I know it's been how long has it been?
I think it's been on like 15 years.
I would say 15 years. So tell us all, how do we meet?
We met at a political function.
Okay.
We were both like thinking that we wanted to be in some sort of politics, and we both realized that we were crazy.
Correct.
So we went home and concentrated on our families and our careers.
So it was. You're right. It was some function, and I remember you weren't even in law school yet, right?
No, I hadn't even gone to law school yet.
That's crazy.
Wow,
Now, did you know you were going to go to law school?
No, I went to law school by chance.
Really? So explain that. What happened?
So I was a pharmaceutical rep when that's what brought me to Tampa. And then after I was I got out of the Army. Then I stayed in Georgia for a little while. I was going to the FBI. I got in, and then we decided to go a different route. Came down here to Tampa, and then we stayed.
Well, let's talk
about
about
that.
Let's go way back in time.
Right.
Cuban.
Right.
All right, let's talk about that. Talk about mom, dad, where they met, and then take it from there.
So both of my parents are refugees. My dad is a Peter Pan kid, so he came over by himself for about 2 years with the Catholic Church, brought him over. And then my mom escaped because they were trying to assassinate my grandfather, so they got her out right in time. So
that's a story right there.
It is. It's an incredible. Thank you. So I owe a lot to them. I know that we have stories of immigrants that they're not uncommon, but that's where my affinity for the United States comes from. That's where my desire to serve comes from. I literally would not be alive if it wasn't for the United States. So
you were born here in the States?
I was born in Miami. My parents were both born in Cuba. So I always say that I'm an American, right, of Hispanic descent. Because my grandfather was always one to tell you, no, I'm Cuban. You're American. And it was good. It was important because it was part of the identity. We are American.
We are.
Yes, I speak Spanish. I'm super proud of my heritage. I'm super proud, but we're Americans first.
That's awesome, man. So, if you don't mind me interrupting just briefly. So, okay, Miami, and then high school, and then undergrad. What would you
no, wait, hold on. So in Miami, my dad then leaves Miami and takes us to Texas. So I grew up in Texas for about 12 years.
Wow.
And then we
went
came
to high
back.
school. You went to like elementary school?
Elementary, all the way going almost into middle school, right?
Wow,
so I came back to Miami saying, "Hey, y'all." So it was this weird juxtaposition of having a country accent, growing up around Texans, being a Texan, and then coming back to Miami and immersing myself in the Cuban culture again. So
that's crazy, man. Now, a lot of Mexicanos over there in Texas, or Tejanos?
I know this sounds crazy. I was always the only person that spoke Spanish.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I know that there's a lot of Mexicans there, but I was so young. I was the only kid.
That's crazy.
But going back to Miami, that's straight Cuba.
Oh yeah. And those the Cuban kids were like, no, you're some rep. And I wore that title proudly. Listen, I still have. For the longest time when I practiced law, I always practiced in jeans. I was wearing Wranglers. And I drive my truck. That was always a carryover. Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's funny. I gotcha.
Where'd you go to high school?
I went to a place called Miami Palmetto Senior High, which is the equivalent of Plant High School, but in Miami.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Good school.
So military. Well, first of all, undergrad, right?
Right.
And then military?
Well, first I failed out of college. Right.
Wow.
I went to Loyola, New Orleans. I had worked for the Miami Herald for about 7 years from high school through college. They helped put me through college.
Doing what? What'd you do for Miami Herald?
I was a reporter. I was a photographer.
Well, no wonder that came
Now
natural.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
It all comes together.
It all comes together. So yeah, we are the accumulation of our careers.
We are.
So I did that, but when I went to Loyola, I was way too immature. It was New Orleans. You're 18 to get into bars and stuff like that. I don't even drink. You know what I mean? I never did drink.
And I've always admired that about you, man. That you've always said that.
Yeah.
You've had a few drinks after hours or whatever, and happy hour, but not Danny. And that's great.
Yeah, it was just never my thing.
Yeah, you always have a good time without the drinks.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Exactly. Everything.
But so I shouldn't have failed. I should have spent more time in concentrating. but I wasn't ready. My mom came and got me. She said, "Get in the car."
The old-fashioned Cuban way.
That's exactly right. Actually, she had my grandmother in the car. She said, "If I got to get your grandmother out of the car," and I'm like, "Let me get my stuff. We're leaving." So I came back, and then it was my editors at the Miami Herald who made some calls that helped get me into the University of Florida. If not, I literally wouldn't be sitting here today because I don't think I'd have a college degree.
Interesting. What was your undergrad?
Journalism.
Journalism.
It was like the natural.
Yeah.
But see, that's when I got to Florida is when I got scared straight. I was the captain of the lacrosse team, and then I was the colonel, the cadet colonel of ROTC. You know what I mean? So I got really involved in ROTC.
How'd you get involved in that? Why ROTC?
That was a service to your country thing. Literally, I didn't care what we did. I just wanted to do something. You know what I mean? I really just wanted to do something. So the problem was like every single time you'd watch one movie or you'd have one speech, you're like, am I doing enough? And so we went from wanting to drive a truck to volunteering for the airborne infantry, and then the rest is history.
So tell us about the military. What happened? What branch? Was it Army?
It was Army. I would always say that the Army, and especially the infantry, was a fundamental molding of my life, the influence on my life. The guy you see here is not the guy that entered the Army, it's the guy that came out. So I was infantry. It was probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. It taught me that like there's no limits in my life, and I thought I had limits, physical and mental, and they just don't accept that. You have to accomplish your mission. So I was in there for about 6 years when I was going to transition into law enforcement. That's the only reason that I got out was to go into law enforcement. I never thought I'd be a regular civilian. And then I got married, and then family.
So battles, conflicts.
No, I only served in Korea. Then my last job was at the airborne school, which was a lot of fun. And then I was part of a jumping exhibition team. So we would jump into stadiums, we'd jump into events, and it was.
So how many jumps?
225.
That's crazy.
Do you still jump now, or?
I just
saw him jump.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's like every once in a while I got a gut check whether you still got it or not. You know
Yeah.
So I felt like I was getting a little bit too far away from who I was, I said, let's just see if I still got it. So I went and got recertified, and I'm jumping again. I love it.
That's awesome. And why'd you go to law school?
So I was pharmaceutical rep, and we weren't going to leave town. So. He's ordering tacos.
Yeah. Are you stereotyping?
What's that?
All the topics, okay.
That's good.
So, I was pharmaceutical rep, and I did very well. But we weren't moving, and to move up in that company, you have to move around. And we had made a family decision not to. So I literally applied to med school, law school, and I looked for Cairo school, but there wasn't one opening up.
That's
and
kind of
law school.
Cairo stuff, Well, remember when we first met? I had the clinic.
That's right.
And
I used to send him cases.
Yeah.
Really?
You did personal injury.
Right.
Yeah, so it's kind of a while. 2006, 2007, somewhere around there.
God, that's a long time ago.
Long time. Not as much as you know him, of course, but a long time.
But it's interesting. It is. It's super interesting. So, I always had a penchant for the law. I love law. I just never saw myself as a lawyer. I mean, I really, I didn't see how it fit into my, life. Once I became a lawyer, though, you realize you might not take yourself that seriously because we're there. We're lawyers, and we live with lawyers, and we study.
Yeah.
But when you go out, especially like in the Hispanic community or lower socioeconomic communities,
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal to them, and you can help solve a lot of problems with. Hey, Your Honor. Good to see you.
Eddie Reyes. Good to see you, Your Honor.
You can solve a lot of problems as a lawyer because of your contacts and your influence and your ability. So I started channeling my law degree for that purpose.
That's this is what I told my kids, that being a lawyer getting a law degree doesn't necessarily mean being a lawyer, but it helps you in so many ways. One way is to be a lawyer and help people out. Well, you just got that advanced degree. Yeah, you think differently, you're more mature. So, because right now at the moment you're not practicing law, right?
Right now.
That's fine, but you love what you do.
Right.
So we're not going to give up on you, though. At some point, we're going to push you to do something, but we'll talk about that maybe for another episode.
Absolutely.
A couple of years or something like that. Now, all right, so we talked about law school, and then when you did practice law, what kind of law did you do? And
I did. So I got my law degree, and then the economy was horrible, so I went and hid. Essentially, I was hiding at the University of Miami for my second law degree, which is in taxes, estate planning, LLM.
I didn't even know that.
Did you ever do that? Like, I don't remember you doing that for some
Oh
reason.
yeah, I did that.
Really?
In fact,
I didn't realize he was so smart. He all looks, the muscles.
he's not smart. He just plays one on TV. So that law school, that was hard. You know what I mean? So at the time, UM was tied with Harvard, and I was like, I can do that. What do I know about that? But I did that, and I practiced estate planning and bankruptcy when I started. And so bankruptcy and estate planning helped keep the lights on while personal injury was beginning to take off. And eventually personal injury became my main focus, pretty successful. And at the same time, I was teaching at the University of Tampa. I was teaching business law. So I love...
Thank you right here.
That was really fast.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Sure,
Thank you, man.
So, and my teaching at the University of Tampa, I think for me, I got my LM for two reasons. One, to help me just kind of hide for that bad economy. I never thought that by the time I was done, there would still be a bad economy.
Yeah.
And then I always wanted to teach. I thought I would teach at law school. And then you know how life takes weird turns. Next you know, I'm teaching at the University of Tampa, and I ended up there for almost 9 years.
Really?
Yeah.
And I can't remember. Did you do something with entertainment law?
Yeah, so
I remember something about that.
One of my subsets in my practice was entertainment law. So, and that's just really business law with an entertainment focus.
Okay, sure. Okay.
So, and that was a lot of fun.
And so tell us specifically two things I want to talk about. One, what do you do for the sheriffs?
Yep.
And second, your motivational speaker. Because sometimes I watch you and I get motivated. not to get up at 4 in the morning and work out the gym, but enough to say after the fact, wow, I wish I had done that.
Yeah.
Come on, you can do it if you want to.
Yeah.
Listen, this is a guy who like be typing at 2 in the morning.
Oh, I know.
But on the other end,
That's true too. I'm the one who goes to bed late. You're the one who goes to bed, wakes up really early.
I'm no good late. Like literally, when the battery is empty,
I'm the opposite.
Good.
My battery level starts to go up as 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. It's a weird. I've been like that all my life. I get more hyper as I get older.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's always been like that.
I wish I could do that.
So tell us about the sheriffs and then the motivational speaking.
So I was preparing to run for judge about 2 years ago, last cycle, and I was around trying to get support, and I hadn't filed yet, and the sheriff, and I knew each other because I had been on the sheriff's Hispanic Advisory Council for about 5 years, and I was a civilian member of the shooting review board. So anytime a deputy would fire their weapon, they would do an administrative review and see if it was, within the. So we knew each other from there, and he said, "Hey, would you help me out?" And I think what he was looking for was someone to come in from the outside that wasn't raised in the sheriff's culture to kind of bring in some fresh ideas. He had seen us marketing our other companies, you know what I mean? So it was a good fit, and man, I loved it.
Yeah. But tell us though, it's not as simple as it seems, right? Because if there's an incident at 2 in the morning, are they calling Danny Alvarez?
Oh yeah. So first though, I felt like I was coming back home. For the entire time I was out of the Army, I never thought I'd get out of the Army.
Yeah.
And so when I'm with these guys, I'll tell you something. These are some of the most incredible people you'll ever work with. Selfless to the point where you feel like, and I feel like I want to be selfless, but these folks are selfless to the point where they make you feel bad because you're not selfless enough.
Right.
That's the caliber of people I'm working with. So when you work with those guys and gals, now your bar is raised. You're gonna hustle. So my office is in charge of crisis management, brand management, reputation management, all social media, all video production, print. I have a print shop, and still photography.
Everything really does come full circle. Wow, look at that.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
So all those jobs I ever did came into one job.
Wow,
and
that's perfect. That worked out well.
Yeah.
But give us an example though. There's an incident at Ybor City at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. And the public, obviously want to know what's going on. So that's where you come in.
Right. So there's 14 different kinds of events that my office gets called for. We're probably like the 4th person to get called after the sheriff and the chief and all that stuff. And then depending on the severity of that case, we'll go out to the scene. So if you're the on-call person, you're going, it could be 2 in the morning, it could be 5 in the morning, you could be working literally all day. So we're trying to get the sheriff's message out and explain to the folks that we live in a day and age where people need information now, right? So you could literally have every car here badged with the sheriff's office, and people would still be wondering, what are they doing? So if you don't tell your story, somebody else is going to tell it for you. So the sheriff understands that, and the people of Hillsborough County pay a lot of money. So what are they getting in return? And we're telling them that story.
I like that, man. I Okay. So it could be an all-day thing, though, like you said, right?
Oh yeah, we could be on a scene all day. You could be called out at 10 and then be home, at 10 in the morning.
I know we've been on the same news article for some different things too.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I remember me too. From the defense attorney perspective.
Yeah. I'm like, I know him.
Before we go to the motivational speaker,
yeah.
let me ask you. You brought up something about the caliber. We watch a lot of, I'm sure, Netflix and stuff about police brutality and corruption. I've lived in Tampa, or whatever, almost 45 years or so. Don't even in the 80s, the 70s, and 80s, maybe there was a different culture, but now it seems like even as a prosecutor, as a defense attorney, I think you talk about good caliber people, man. I can't think of one cop that I would ever suspect, or deputy sheriff, that would do something illegal or inappropriate. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's some issues,
right.
But how do you explain that? Why is it that you don't see that Tampa, as you know, is the focus of everything? We have teachers that have sexual minors, but you don't hear the same corruption that you hear going on in other states. So why is that?
So before I got I worked as pharmaceutical rep. I worked for Johnson & Johnson, and then I was in the Army. So those are almost two corporate entities, right?
Yeah.
When I came to work for the sheriff's office, I thought I was going to come for work for some local government agency, and it would have its nuances, but it wasn't going to be. The sheriff's office is literally the corporatization. It is like a Fortune 500 company whose business is law enforcement. They expect high standards. They enforce high standards. They respect the process to a degree. But remember, I'm the outsider coming in. The very first scene, there was a SWAT shooting, and not a SWAT shooting, a SWAT call out, and we were looking for the bad guy. And the bad guy had called his attorney. And so I'm thinking, now I'm on this side, I'm like, the attorney, right? Here comes the attorney. The sheriff's office respected that situation so much, they literally brought the attorney to the scene. Once they got the guy, they gave him time to talk to his attorney. And it wasn't like anyone was like this, eavesdropping. There was a tone of protection for that, and they respected the process to the degree where I was like, wow, it's real. They really, really do things the right way. Now, there's humans, right?
Well, there's incidents that there's some, not perfect.
So we can, as attorneys, as attorneys, we have a brotherhood where it's less than perfect too. You know what I'm saying?
Of course.
Because when you bring humans into the factor, that's the number one fault. You know what I mean? So the question is, what happens when you identify something that's not correct? Do you brush it under the rug? Do you tear in the back? In this case, everything's a training opportunity. If there's something that's wrong, there's very little tolerance. There's very, very little tolerance. I've seen people lose their careers for things where I was like, man, that's kind of hard. But there's only one standard. You know what I mean? And if you don't live up to it, you don't belong there.
Like I said, I prosecuted 10 years, and I can't even think of a time that any of the defense attorneys in that era say, oh, that cop is lying about the confession, or that cop, barged the way in under consent, or whatever. I don't remember any stories like that. So this is long-standing. It's not just recently, but I've always liked it as a true believer in the system. Even more so now that I'm older as a defense attorney, I try to beat my opponents, the cops, try to get them to say something they did wrong, and they don't, because they didn't do anything wrong. I'm not saying they're perfect,
right?
But I got to tell you something. It's really hard to win, for example, a motion to suppress in state court if the cops do it right.
Well, no, I agree. I mean, there are isolated incidents that there's individuals that make bad decisions, but overall, I think it's great.
So let's say in a case like that, they did something wrong and you caught it, right?
Yeah.
You didn't catch it once, right? Because the professionalization of this goes, all right, let's after action review that. What happened? What should we have done different? So like now, for example, they get warrants on every scene. Like if they've been in and the scene's open, it's an open field, they'll get a warrant.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
there we are. No, you're sitting there waiting. You know what I mean?
You're right. Murder scenes, there's no one to get consent from because God forbid everyone's dead, but they get a warrant anyway, just to make sure that there's no third party out there saying, wait a minute, that's my private property. They did it the correct way. So then when that murder client falls in my lap, dude, man, they had a warrant. There's nothing I can do here. Unless there's some deficiency, but there normally isn't. So kudos to the sheriffs and the TPD. I got to tell you something. I've been impressed as a true believer. It's really hard to win as a defense attorney now. Again, they're not perfect. And there are loopholes that we obviously take advantage of.
What do you mean take advantage? Just say that.
But listen, you know what's interesting? Like we'll be on a scene, right? So a deputy gets taught the law, right? And if there's any question of a doubt, they're calling. And so they'll be like, hey, corporal, hey, sergeant. I've been there. I ride along all the time. And you'll hear the analysis. And it's funny because we do elements. They do elements too. You'll hear the corporal going, all right, stop. did you see this, this, and this? Then you don't. If you didn't see it, then you can't arrest that guy.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, I'm going to arrest him. And the corporal might say, but we can't because we don't meet the element. Okay, right. So they'll make that, and that happens every single night, every single day.
That's awesome. Man.
It really is.
Awesome.
It's very impressive.
Let's talk about your motivational speaking and all that, because I've seen you, and I thought it was part of the sheriff. Is that something separate?
Yeah, we did that before. I went to work for the sheriff's office. It was something that, look, I do a couple things okay in my life, and talking is one, and I'm not afraid to talk to other people, you know?
Yeah.
And somewhere along the way we find out, you know what I mean, that like everyone else is having similar experiences that we are, but we live in these silos, and then we keep making the same mistakes on our own. And I just thought, man, what if I just told everybody that I did the same thing they did? You know what I mean?
And this is how I got
this is what happened to me, and it might help somebody. So we just started doing that individually. And then one thing led to another, and someone came up and goes, this was the impetus. Someone comes up and goes, hey man, I heard you, and that really helped me. I told my son what you said, and I was like,
that makes a difference.
You told your son what I said. Who am I, right?
Yeah.
And so then I realized that everybody, doesn't matter what your rank in society is, everyone can use
I agree.
And that's what we use this show here for.
Exactly.
Too.
I think it's smart.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of why I'm kind of glad that, normally I have one or two guests. I think we needed just you, just for today, because there's so many questions that we get asked of you. And, somebody else, don't get me wrong, we have plenty of good guests, but another guest would probably taking away that energy. And I want the people to know this guy is energy, man.
Yeah.
People ask me, they say I'm a motivator. Who motivates you? People like this guy.
Oh, man, thank you.
People like you, all kidding aside. And Anthony Gonzalez, man, Tigre Blanco, man. That guy, for 61 years old, man.
Very strong.
I look at him and say, I can't wait to be that age. Not like pushing it, but I'm like, it's not so bad.
Absolutely.
Not so bad.
So Anthony's probably right now gloating as we,
He's like, haha.
Anthony's probably like, I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah. You could have done better, Camareno. You could have done better. Listen, one last thing though, because I know we got to finish eating, and I know you got something going on. Let me ask you this question for both of you. What is it about the Cuban people that are so resilient, man? I mean, I grew up in Tampa. I don't know if it's a cultural thing. I don't know if it's a product of their environment because of what they went through in Cuba, and it's ingrained in the stories. What is it about Cubans that are so resilient? I mean, for example, your generation, and then I've met clients a generation older, or they came in the boat lift, Marielitos, who risked their lives on the high seas. I remember, never forget, one guy that 6 times he tried to come over, 6 times they intercepted him, 6 times they sent him back, and on the 7th time he said, I'm staying, and he made it.
Yeah.
So what is it about the Cuban people? So I'll turn it on you for a little bit.
I think, it's that work ethic, because my parents didn't have nothing, and they had to work hard. They didn't come with money. Live in a communist country, even though there's some changes, if you want food, you need to work for food.
Right.
It's not like it's going to get given it to you. It's not as easy. I mean, and it was that family community, because everybody was living in the same areas. So then you have to, and there's no phones, and there's no internet, so you have to go there and talk to people and work and do things together. And I think that my mom here when she worked in Tampa, she worked. It wasn't a big job. It was very just $10 an hour, nothing crazy. But she's like, you got to keep working, and never give up. And she was able to give me stuff, not a lot of things, but good education and everything else. And that means a lot to me. And I think that came from her upbringing in Cuba, that they didn't have that much to work with, and that they had to make it work. Me personally.
So then what you're looking at is an experience base, right? So when the Cubans came over, even the ones in the early, they came over economically, right? But then the ones that came over because they lost everything, right? Now they have an experience base, and they go, I'm never going to lose everything again. So that motivation, that fear motivation to work for it, make sure they earn their keep, that comes from that. But I mean, so take away the Cuban part. Talk about the Vietnamese. Talk about the Venezuelans today.
Talk Mexicanos that keep crossing over and over again because they don't,
Think about Croatians. Those people have a love for our country because of the opportunity that they can have here that they might not have in their own country, and they value it. So for my son, I'm always super scared. I'm really scared that I'm raising him to the point where he doesn't have that hunger that we had because, bro, how many days did I have like rice with yellow, with an egg on top?
I get it.
My mom was like, "Hey, enjoy your dinner." You know what I mean? That's
Big Mac.
Right. So, my kid is the son of an accountant and a lawyer. You know what I mean? So, what does he want for? You know what I mean? So, I have to figure out a different way to motivate him. But the generations that are coming, the Venezuelans, we're getting the best of Venezuela right now. Think about that. Those people
that's
are
true,
coming, you know
that's
what I mean?
true, too.
We got the best of the Vietnamese, you know what I mean? We got really great, like, the Croatians, you know what I mean? So, it's really what your experience base is and how you value the opportunity.
Yeah, no, I like that, man. I like that, man. So I know you got to get going.
Yeah.
Right? So we always try. Well, first of all, we want to thank our guests, right? The Hall,
The Hall of Franklin.
The Hall of Franklin. So thank you, the Hall of Franklin.
Oh, there she is. We're thanking the Hall of Franklin.
We're thanking you.
We're thanking you.
Same right here.
She's like, okay, I'm done.
She
All right.
says, thank you.
All right, salute, guys. Salute.
Thank
Danny,
you.
So listen, before we shut off, Danny, I'm telling you, I'm going to anticipate. I see in the future that one day you'll be something powerful, a mover and a shaker in the city.
Thank you.
Guarantee it. I'll be there to support you, all right?
I would love the support.
You got it.
Thank you very much.
Salute.